Welcome to the Big 3 and Me podcast, powered by G Media. My name is Akil Patterson, host of the Big 3 and Me podcast. And today we are bringing you HBO Max's episode 3. Actually, he's a writer for the show that you've been watching called We Own This City. Mr. D.Watkins, poet, author, entrepreneur, and my friend. Get ready for the Big 3 and Me, powered by G Media. And as always, let's get to it. Welcome back to the Big 3 and Me podcast, powered by G Media. I'm joined by screenwriter, author, he probably got directing credits underneath his name, and he is a badass baller when he's on the court. He may not look it, but he will break your ankles. Mr. D. Watkins. What's going on, D? I tell all my friends, I'm like, my homie wrote, Carmelo's book, and they were like, really? Oh, is he a trained journalist? I was like, no, he a former drug dealer. They were like, what? I'm like, yeah. Weird shit happens, man. The weirdest things happen.
I mean, you gotta let them know. I got MFA too, so I did a little teeny bit of training.
Nah. You were writing before you even got your master's defined.
I was right. It's not, but I do feel like, even though I'm not running for office, I do want to say it's not honorary.
Exactly.
I don't got the same one Bill Cosby and them got. Like I had to do my homework.
Yeah, we all did. Listen, I tell folks listen, these degrees they weren't cheap and they weren't easy.
Hey, talk about it.
So let's get in. Let's rewind the course, right? So I know a majority of your background, you were a corner guy. You ended up having some operations. Somebody gave you a book, changed your life. And now that's what you do. You are an author, a journalist, and a consumer of knowledge and just read. And you know what? Walking down the street, you look like any other yo on the corner.
It's wild because, I know you know this because you've worked with all kinds of people in many different circles, and a common thing that ties us together is so many of us just want to give up. So many of us just want to give up because we're waking up every day, we're feeling pain, we don't know how to deal with it, we feel oppressed, or we feel like we can't grow, we don't know how to advance, and we feel like there's nothing there for us. And I think I was going through a transitional phase in my life because I was in college, but I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know, so I got to college and I was like, damn, what do I want to study? Okay, I'm a criminal and I believe in justice, so I'll take criminal justice. And then I had a class and it had and this is back when college classes used to be full. So I had a class and it's 35 cops in there. And I'm like, damn, this shit is terrible. I don't want to take this shit. So I went to the advisor, dude was like, bro, I'm not going to hold you. If you stay in criminal justice, all of your classes will be cop heavy courses. So I was like, damn, I'm not trying to be around a bunch of police officers every fucking day. So then I switched to jurisprudence and I'm like, yo, this is fucking kind of boring. It's not interesting. The philosophy of law, it wasn't interesting to me. So, I took a history class with a history teacher that I thought was the coolest motherfucker ever. And he was cool ass guy. His name's Eric Singer. And I switched my major to history. So even though I was in history and I'm studying Reconstruction and I'm studying, my ancestors' entrance into this country, and I'm inspired and I'm learning, I still didn't really know what my move was. I had to do something because I'm used to earning, I'm used to having, and I don't know, I didn't know what was out there for me. And I had to go to the hospital and this nurse gave me a book, and she gave me a book, and it blew my mind. And in that moment, I'm not going to say I read that one book and was like, oh my God, I'm going to go be a best-selling author, screenwriter one day. I read the book and I'm like, damn, my generation, it means something. It means something to somebody. I'm looking at the cover of the book. That shit said over 1 million copies in print. I was like, damn. That means 1 million people, or potentially 1 million people, got their hands on this or want to get their hands on this, and that was something special to me, and that kind of jump started my career.
So now your career's going. You're covering news stories. You're writing for because I remember one of the small funny stories is it was the night after a debate. We're walking back. We're going across the street to some tavern. We're gonna go have some whiskey or something. And this dude hits me with a car. And I smashed his car with my hands. And by far, it's the funniest thing you ever seen. It was like, hold on.
That shit was scary, man. It was kind of scary, man.
And then the dude called the cops on me, like, these 3 black guys attacked me, like 3. It was 2. And the other dude was white, and so was the girlfriend. Like, it was.
Well, no, the third guy was DeRay, because DeRay was there, so he might have been the third black guy.
DeRay was not there. DeRay was not there.
I thought DeRay was walking across the street.
He
as well.
Way behind us. He might have been.
Okay. So 3 black guys. Maybe you were 2 black guys, and I was the other one. Then maybe that's what that was.
Because DeRay don't mess with me, you know that. DeRay don't mess with me at all.
Yeah, I don't understand why though, because like I said, I don't really like follow, like I'm kind of aloof to like a lot of things. So when I like and I'm gonna say outsider because I don't know the whole situation, but as an outsider in that particular situation, I'm like, damn, the conversations I had with Akil. Is always about empowering us, and I don't have a lot of conversations with him, but the few I had with him was kind of about how we gonna look out for us. And I don't get into philosophies and different ideas unless I'm invited to, because I don't try to act like I got all the answers, but I thought that was something like I thought that was something that could be maybe mended, based on the core print, the foundation of we all love black people. You know what I mean?
So homie Trevon Free, if you're familiar with Trevon Free's work.
Yeah, I know who he is. I never met him before.
Yeah, good dude. I'll introduce you guys sometime or whatever. But he's tried to mend it, but it was like, it was over the Ferguson stuff. I basically asked him to take a second and recognize if Black lives really matter, then we need to get our brothers that are currently incarcerated out. That's what I said to him. Like, But sometimes people just don't hear that. They're like, well, but we're worried about. I'm like, look, I get it. Michael Brown was unjustifiably killed, but at the same time, we've got young men that are in jail right now that we can get out. Let's do something for them. Because I'm worried about the solutions. Because I know you are too. Like, you see a homie locked up that's unjustifiably locked up. You're like, look, I'm gonna fight to get him out. And so I've done that. You've done that. It's like, why can't he do that? Like, he got more juice than both of us.
Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely, I feel you. I feel you. And my quick answers, I don't know what he does. You know what I'm saying?
Well, trust me.
I don't know what he does. Like, and that's maybe it's ignorance on my behalf, but and this is gonna sound like a super cop out, but it's my truth. My writing schedule is a motherfucker. and my writing schedule, and people just see the shit that gets made or they got published. They don't see the shit that don't get published because it all doesn't get published. So my writing schedule is so fucking intense that if I took time to get into an argument that wasn't going to lead to something productive, then I'm a dickhead because I should have been working. Should have been working. You know what I mean? Like, and I think with me and you align in a way is it's only but so much I can't like, and tell me if I'm judging you wrong. It's only but so much talking I'm going to be able to do, before it flips. So like, I'm done. Like, I'm done. Like, I mean, if I can go back in time, I would have stopped you from destroying a Prius, because that person was investing in sustainable energy, and that person cared about us because they were invested in sustainable energy.
If he wasn't sustainable, he would have slowed down when I was at that intersection. He was like, well, I'm just gonna keep driving. Like, well, you saw me from half a block away. Why would you keep driving?
What was that event? What were we coming? I know we were coming on Micah, but what was it?
That was the mayoral town. That was the last mayoral town hall.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
It was like, it couldn't have. It was just a few months after the uprising. This was when we both said, like, well, where D-Ray come from? I know he's from the county, but when did he get to Baltimore? Like,
oh, so my girl Kathy was in the building.
Yeah, I heard Catherine Pugh is now back home in Baltimore.
She's running. I heard she was running again.
Oh, she might be. You know, they fearless. They don't care. But one of the things that so back to you, because we get a little tired. So back to you. So, you know, you've been writing books. Let's like, you know, why don't we run through, like, so your most recent book is Black Boy Joy.
Smile, Black Boy Smile.
I'm sorry, Black Boy Smile. And, you know, one of the things you had talked to me about when you were saying, you know, if you're going to write a book, it has to be equally as funny as it is thought provoking. Talk to me about Black Boy Smile.
Black Boy Smile. It's a memoir in moments, and it's probably the most personal book I ever wrote, because I talk about my wife, I talk about my daughter, I talk about my relationship with my dad, I talk about being physically abused, I talk about, like, the impact that violence has had on me and my character. I talk about people who I hurt. I talk about people who I tried to make it right with, but I couldn't. I talk about people who I tried to make it right with, and I did. And for the first time in my career, I felt like I took that mask off. And instead of acting like, you know, I have this show, this exterior where pain doesn't really affect me, I let the readers and the people who really rock with me or have been supporting my career know that I'm as vulnerable and as weak and as scared and as confused as the next person. And if you get anything other than that, wholeheartedly, then it's just not true. So I felt compelled to do that, especially for the young people who are like, oh yeah, you know, we read D.Watkins and D.Watkins, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, no, don't think, you know, I was some person that was running these blocks fearless. No, that's not true. I don't think I was a person who was just walking around without feeling, you know, pain and not zero empathy, because these things are just not true. So I had to get that out there.
Now, when you talk about bringing up trauma and pain in your writing, does that translate to being open and vulnerable for your readers, or does that translate to you finally getting that healing that you needed?
It's a combination of both, because I'm the first to tell you I'm a work in progress. Like, I'm not, it's people are like, oh, you're at the finish line. And it's like, no, I'm not at the finish line. And I'm, this, but I'm saying, like, people from the outside in, we're all on social media. It's very dangerous. We show what's good. There's not really any options. There's not sharing options for the bad. It's kind of only really sharing options for the good stuff. So I think, and this is also, it comes from me visiting a gazillion schools, going to a bunch of jails, going to a bunch of youth programs. People's perception of me is, oh, he always has fun, or he's been through a lot and he's not fazed. And that's dangerous. That is a dangerous narrative. I am fazed and I don't always have fun. And you should know that, because I don't want you to feel like if you're not having fun, you're weird. Or if you are fazed, I don't want you to feel like it's weak to be like, Akil, you hurt my feelings. Like, that's not a weak thing. It's, it's how we should talk. It's, if we talk like that, then maybe we wouldn't be, so inclined to be violent, if we can have real conversations.
Yeah, I think, and that's something that I remember, you, me, and Aaron Maven have had these conversations before too. It's like, as a black man in America that is of intelligence, you are balancing your thought process with a public image. Like, you got to do both. You're like, look, I got to make sure dudes know that although I'm writing or I'm expressing myself, I'm not some punk. Like, I'm still me, but I'm just letting you know that I've now grown. And now that my growth is, I'm telling you that all these things that kind of messed me up are also what made me the man I am today. So, when you're balancing that act, communicating it to people is very difficult, right?
You have to have multiple languages. The language I have the language I have when I'm in my classroom is not the language I have when I'm at Bocheck's Father's Day cookout. I'm the same person, but I'm clearly talking to a different demographic with different priorities and a different value system. So at times I had to tense up and dip into a more negative version of myself. I had to recently. I got into it with a dude at the cookout about the show. I got into it with a dude at the Father's Day cookout at the show, and in the back of my mind, I'm like, damn, 3 people told me, yo, don't go to the cookout this year. And I'm like, yo, this is a tradition. I've been doing this shit since I was little. What do you mean don't go to the cookout? Well, there's a civil war going on. Everybody's hungry. You could potentially look like lunch. Don't go to the cookout. So I'm like, fuck that. Where you going there? I'm on my way to the cookout. I go down there. This dude follows me around. I'm taking pictures with kids because, I do school visits, so kids know me. Yeah. Taking pictures with kids. I'm talking to the old heads. I'm on the basketball court shooting jumpers. Everywhere I go as I'm making my way through the park, dude follow me. Then he corners me when I'm by myself, and he's like, why you ain't put me in a motherfucking show? And I'm like, yo, check this out. You ever been to the shopping mall? So you know how the sneaker store is right here, and then the department store is on the other end? Okay, boom. So casting is like the sneaker store. I worked in the department store. I have no fucking idea. I didn't put anybody. Do you understand that? No, I'm just saying, you put my peoples in there and they got a chance to do their thing. But if not, we'd have had a problem. So now I'm like, okay, so let's act like I didn't put them in there. Now what? And now the people that's with me, because everybody's reaching all of the time, and now it's a problem. And now it's like, wait a second, stop. That's not what you're not about that. And I'm like, you know what? If I hurt you, I apologize, but that's not my job. If you would get some time, I would love to explain the process. And then I've got to calm down the other people who are watching because, I fund some of them. So we're not going to let you kill the money. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, that ain't going to happen. So I don't want nothing to happen to this person who's clearly frustrated at something that has nothing to do with me. I've never promoted myself as the casting expert or anything ever. No. So now I'm getting into a beef about some shit that I didn't even think I would get into beef over. I mean, shit, we hired over 5,000 people from Baltimore. People were working over the pandemic. Their first time to cash a check that wasn't no government shit was from working for HBO, telling a story that they was involved in, getting the chance to be heard by fucking producers, which is historic. So I'm not even thinking about the people who feel like they didn't get on, even though all they had to do was follow my Instagram and respond to the email. Yeah, it was very simple.
Wow. But that's growth right there. You talked about growth. I want to, let's shift gears because, homie, congratulations. You made it out. Not you, D. I'm talking about the homie that tried to step to you. Like, you made it out. It can get ugly because you're from East Baltimore. And a lot of people don't realize East Baltimore is still a place that has its struggles. It's got a lot of beauty. It's got a lot of greatness, but it also has its struggles. So uplifting that. Now let's talk about you writing episode 3, For We Own This City, and how you came to speak truth to power in it. Because I even told Catalina, I told folks before, I was like, I'm really interested to see how D reflects his narrative in this, because you were writing articles on this before it became a television show. Like, you were telling this narrative when it was happening, when the uprisings were going on, when you said the corruption in Baltimore was running rampant, and people were like, no way that's happening. And I was like, well, he's not wrong.
You know, it's crazy because before We Own the City came out, I did the Slow Hustle. The Slow Hustle, in my perspective, could have potentially cost me that gig. Because if you go back and watch, for people who listen to the podcast, if you go back and watch the Slow Hustle, I'm very clear in how I feel in regards to what happened to Detective Sean Suter. I'm very clear. I don't bite my tongue. I got death threats for that, right? But the opportunity for We Own This City didn't really start. It didn't start when Sean Suter was killed. It didn't start when the Gun Trace Task Force was indicted. It started back in 2014. 2014, I wrote an essay, and I got an email from David Simon saying, I think you a bad motherfucker. Like I know them voices. I know talent when I see it. You ever want to get into TV, hit me up. And at the time I wrote the essay, I was flat broke. I got paid $125 for the essay, and it took 6 months to come. And I'm like, he emailing me this on like a fucking Tuesday or a Wednesday. I'm emailing him back on that Tuesday or that Wednesday. Like, yeah, I want to work at TV now. I'm literally working nowhere. That sounds like fucking coolest shit ever. So we went and had a cup of coffee, and he told me about what it was like to be in the writer's room and this and that, and he didn't have anything he was working on at the time, but he knew some other people that had some things, and he threw me a couple of oops, but the things, it just never went through. Like one time I went to Ferguson with Chad Coleman for like a month, and he was supposed to play Mike Brown's father, but the producers out there, they didn't have the rights to the story. So I'm out there all that time, gathering research and writing the treatment and putting work in, and I ended up coming home with nothing. And then it was like another situation with Lawrence Gilliard, who's from Baltimore, an amazing actor and creator. And we had a chance. We had some good conversations, but the project didn't get off the ground. So now over the years, my writing career is starting to pick up, and I'm not really relying on put-ons because I'm figuring it out, how to pitch, how to get into certain situations, and I put the TV stuff to bed. But the main reason why I ended up working on that project is, one, like I said, David saw something in me. He thought I could write. And two, number two, in a way, I broke the story in a way. So Puente was the first person to write about Daniel Herschel's settlements, right? The city paying out $250,000 on behalf of this guy. And Fenton wrote an article
he was the one who had gotten jumped by the police on the corner.
Who?
What's his name?
Puente?
Yeah.
No. Mark Puente used to write for the Baltimore Sun. I think he has a Pulitzer.
No, who was the first dude that got, so he got a settlement out of the police department for getting jumped?
No, Moose got a settlement for being arrested and harassed by Daniel Herschel.
Okay. That was Moose.
But
the rapper, correct?
Yeah, he's the rapper. And Fenton wrote something about him being charged for crimes, but I was the first person that got collected stories from the community from multiple generations of people that was harassed by Daniel Herschel. So other writers had stories about what happened once them documents, but I was actually talking to Moose in jail. I went to go see him. I was actually talking to his family. I was actually making the rounds and collecting these stories and putting it down, and I broke that story. So because I broke that story, on top of like the connections I had with people close to the story, just by being like, accessible and in the street. Like I was still outside. I was outside a lot. So I know Shropshire. I knew Anderson. Like I knew all the key players. I know them. I know them on one person removed. I can be like, yo, what up, bro? I'm from such and such. Yo, tell your people's call me. Oh, he need a phone in the jail. Okay, bet. Here go the cell phone. Here go the 700. Send it to the CO. Boom. Tell him to call me. Like I can tap in. right? So that was a valuable asset, even more valuable than my ability to write for television because I have no experience. So when I got the phone call, I thought that I was just coming in the room to learn, which be totally fine to me. It'd be totally fine for me because, one thing about David Simon, George Pelicanos, if they want to get a show made, they can push a button and get it made. I want to be able to push a button and get a show made. So I want to learn from them. So when I came into the room, they were like, "Oh no, we need that skill set. You write an episode," and that's kind of how it came about.
Basically, he was like, "Nah, you writing this." Yeah. Now, I've got to ask you your feelings on the intent on how they ended up treating the character of Detective Suiter on that show. I know how I felt about how I feel about this. Is like, listen, a lot of people were either displaced, harmed, their community was shut down, all because somebody committed suicide, and then you put out a random APD on somebody with a jacket and white stripes, and he was a black male, and I was like, well, that's a Raiders jacket in the 90s. I mean, like what are you looking for? Like, no height, and he's on the call. He was on a call, like he was going to a homicide. So, what are your feelings about how they ended up portraying the character?
We fought in the room. So this is the first thing that I think people should know. David and George wrote episode 1, 5, and 6. Ed Burns and Bill Zorzi wrote episode 2 and 4. I wrote 3 by myself, right? So in the room, and this is how it works. In the room, we were all given responsibilities based on our skill set and what we know, and our experience. And then we got a chance to go on our own and write what we wrote. So if you see the style of, 3 and 4, 2 and 4, it might be a little different than 1 and 3 because we're all different writers and we all tell stories in different ways. Mm-hmm. I didn't have a hand in episode 6. So if I wrote episode 6, then it would have been a different episode. However, what I will say is David wrote a 13,000 word essay on why he wrote the episode the way he wrote it. And it's an argument that is worth reading and compelling. It may flip some people, it may not flip some people because all we have is our experiences and what we know. None of us were there. And there's a lot of evidence that will lead you to believe both sides. So it's all based on where you enter it at. So I'm entering it from a place of fuck the police. That's what they do. That's my entry point. He's entering it from a different way. He entered it from a way of what he researched and what he studied and access that he has the ability to tap into that I don't. People who will talk to him that won't talk to me. Right. So it's all about where you enter it at. So it's like, I understand why people would be frustrated, but I will also challenge those people to not just be frustrated at how it is, but to take your frustration and do the research. And so you can add that to your frustration. Because frustration without really spending time going through the documents, looking at the footage, walking through the neighborhood, talking to the family, talking to the lawyer, like research frustration without all of that is just frustration. People get frustrated all of the time, but I would like to see more nuanced arguments on both sides. I know how I feel, and I know the feeling I got from his family, and that's why I feel the way I feel. However, I'm not trying to flip people or convince people because it's just not my life mission. It's not my life mission to solve. I've never woke up in the morning and said, God damn, I'm Murder, She Wrote. I got to solve this crime. Like, I've never said that. I don't think I'll ever say that. You know what I'm saying?
You're like, I'm not Angela Lansbury. I'm not here for this.
I'm not Lansbury Angela. I'm not going to do that. But, I also don't knock people who do.
Well, I don't think I'll ever knock you for any of your writings. I think, from several, you've written several books. You helped Carmelo Anthony write his book. You have helped bring up so many other people. Your network is impressive. I've always thought that, from anyone that can go from the streets to the suites, like you can go from the court to the courthouse. Like you make a happy balance. And what I like to always show, and especially here on my show, is like, look, I cover crypto, competition, and culture, but for some reason with you, I didn't even want to bring up money or crypto, because you know why? This is bigger than that. What you do is you help people craft stories, narrate these stories, and develop their own sense of self. I think that's important, and for a lot of young people, is they get to develop a sense of self-worth and identity from reading and writing, because oftentimes, and I know you know this, like here I am, I got books behind me, I read, on my off time. It's hard to get people just to sit down and just take a minute and be like, yo, what was this show really about? Why is this man writing what he writes? Why is he on some of the biggest talk shows in America? Like, who is this guy? Like, what made him so special? But what I realize is it's not about you were special. It's that you took your talents and you made them relatable to so many different demographics of people. Tell me, in just your words, why do you think you are relatable to so many different communities? Because again, like you said, you got old white dudes that listen to you. Mm-hmm. You got young dudes on the street corner that will just, hey, my bad, yeah, go inside, get your candy. Like they leave you alone.
I think because in a way, and I'm not saying I figured out something special. I'm saying that I think that they believe, and I believe that at the core, we all want the same things. At the core, we want to be happy. We want people to love us. We want our relationships to be meaningful and impactful. We want money left over after the bills. We want ice cream and shit. You know what I'm saying? Like at the core, we want the same things. I think in life, we're taught that we're different, we taught that we're so different. We have nothing in common. Black guy makes it out the hood. He don't identify with the hood. Black guy walks in white boardroom. He don't identify with the boardroom. Black guy gets on the elevator and white lady clutches purse. Like, and at the end of the day, like, I don't want to touch that lady's purse, because a lot of times it's a bullshit purse, And at the end of the day, we both desire quality. You know what I mean? So the purse she's clutching is not quality. I'm not snatching your fucking Dooney and Coach Burke shit. Like, I'm not touching that shit. Like, so I think at the end of the day, we all want the same thing, and I think a lot of my writing kind of taps into that. Expanding the idea of what an American story is.
Well, I think your American story is a phenomenal one. So if you have not, please go out, check out any of D.Watkins' books, his articles. He's still over at Salon?
Yeah, I'm hanging out. I bring something once a week over there, and I got the luxury of I wrote about how much I respect teachers. People are running in schools and fucking shooting in students, and you telling teachers to go to work, like it's wild. And I got a chance to write about Father's Day, and I got a chance to write about some things that a lot of people are scared to say, like like when cops get shot, how come people in the community don't care? Like, that's, people aren't going to say that. It's very true. You're like, oh my God, they shot some people up, and you're like, oh my God, that's sad. And they're like, yeah, one was a cop, and the people are like, oh, fuck them. And you're like, why are they saying that? And then you look at stories like how they just shot this kid at Akron 60 times. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And this is why people feel this way. So how are we ever going to mend anything, right? We can talk about abolish, we can talk about defund all we want, but at some point we got to talk about reality. What is actually going to be done? Because maybe it can happen, but I don't know if I see that happening in my lifetime or the lifetime of my child. So what can we do now to try to mend and fix these problems to make it better now? What can we do now? We can plan for the future, but what are we going to do now? And I think, that's another reason why a lot of us get frustrated with what's happening in the world right now is a lot of people have platform based on nothingness, and they're not connecting to people or tapping into people or knowing people with real problems. They just get a list of talking points and they just run with them shits. It doesn't help.
Well, you know me. I'm not a talking point type of guy. I have my own thought process. It's weird to a lot of people. It is always a little weird, but I think the way that you've connected with people, D, is important. I think that I even told Callie, and I said after episode 3, I kind of was like, I didn't really want to care about the rest of them. I just didn't. I did, because listen, when you live something, like when you live through it, right? When you can smell the tear gas from your house, when you see fat flash grenades going off like on the corner of North Ave, when you know that stuff, you're like, yeah, I get that because I lived that. But what I didn't live is I didn't live the experience of like Moose who sat in jail. I didn't experience the other men and women who have been traumatized by police forces, not because they're police forces, but because they're run by corrupt people. Like, for lack of a better word, when corruption injects itself into our society, it hurts everyone. And so now, instead of just being like, there are corrupt people there, they're like, nah, the entire police force sucks. I'm like, well, not really, because as you and I both know, there's some really great people that work in Baltimore Police Department. There really are some great people. But those dudes will be the first ones to tell you, like, look, man, don't rock the boat. Because if you do, somebody's coming after you, and it's not just going to be your job. It's your pension. It's your family's safety. And so they're the first ones to be like, look, man, just back off. It's not worth it.
I think what corruption does is it causes a certain segment of people to not believe in the system. And when you have a certain segment of people not believing in the system, then they're more inclined to hurt people that do. And so I agree with you. This is why it hurts everybody. You want everybody to buy into the system, because when people don't buy into the system, then, it can be a bad situation for a lot of people. So that's a real thing.
Well, D, this is the end of our time. I appreciate you. You're going to make me turn this into something that it may not have been, but thank you so much for joining me here on the Big 3 and Me. I know it's been a long time coming. I appreciate you, good brother. So do you have anything left to say to the audience before you take off and go enjoy the rest of your day?
Just love, man. Anything I can do to help, just let me know. I'm around. Sorry it took so long. I've been out here trying to sell these books. I'm finally taking a little bit of time off. I'm gonna take baby girl to Disney World tomorrow, actually.
Oh, little mama gonna love that.
I'm about to go to sleep so I can conserve this energy.
Well, her mind gonna be blown. She running around. So I hope your family has a great time there. D, thank you so much again for joining us here on the Big 3 Me podcast. And for everyone at home, make sure you go get Black Boy Smile. D. Watkins, great author. Watch episode 3 of We Own This City on HBO Max. My name is Akil Patterson, host of the Big 3 and Me, powered by G Media. Have a great day and an even better tomorrow.